Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, political fallout is building around the New Mexico Republican Convention, why the results are causing so much discussion. And
he is not going to turn the history back. History moving forward. And we are free and we want to be free.
A group of Ukrainian Americans here in New Mexico on what more the U.S. and our state can do to support their friends and loved ones trying to survive the Russian invasion. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm your host, Gene Grant. The situation on the ground in Ukraine is changing by the minute. Civilian areas are being bombed and Ukrainian citizens are trying to protect their country. In just over 10 minutes, I speak with a Ukrainian professor sheltering outside the capital of Kyiv. I ask him what he's seen, and he shares some insight on the tactics from the Kremlin. Here in New Mexico, a group of Ukrainian Americans are working hard to help people in their home country navigate the uncertainty. The nonprofit has been holding demonstrations to raise support for more than a month, even before Russia's invasion began. They say they saw this coming. In the second half of tonight's show, I'll ask them what support they need from us as both Americans and New Mexicans. Our governor is putting our state in the national spotlight for a different reason this week: hydrogen. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham signed onto a plan with Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming to lobby together for a chunk of $8 billion in federal funding. In about 20 minutes, I'll ask our line opinion panelists how this could impact our state. But first, last week's New Mexico Republican Convention is still generating headlines. The biggest controversy centered around the vote for primary candidates for governor, with one notable contender left off. Let's get to the line. Thank you all for joining us at the virtual roundtable this week. First, we have a former New Mexico senator. That would be Dede Feldman. Next, it's another regular on our program, Merritt Allen from Vox Optima Public Relations. We want to welcome back Jessica Onsores, news director at the Carlsbad Current-Argus. Good to have you all here. I'm going to start with your reaction to the Republican convention here in New Mexico. It's a big year with the race for governor in the fall, and the party got a chance to choose its top candidates. Now, getting enough delegate votes to be on the ballot in the primary are Sandoval County Commissioner Jay Block, State Representative Rebecca Dow, and West Point graduate and veteran Greg Zanetti, in that order. The notable exception is Mark Ronchetti, the former TV weatherman and Senate candidate. Merritt, let me start with you. What was the thought process here for delegates? Is there something to be gleaned from the order of the delegates here? And we'll get to the actual convention and its machinations in a second, but I want to concentrate on who came in what where. What does it mean in the long run to you?
I think very little, just because the convention itself was so disordered.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to say. And of course, you also have the top two candidates being 7 delegates apart. So you've got the fourth place finisher who didn't even really try to campaign for delegates. And then you've got the top 3 finishers who were, 50 delegates apart out of a total convention participation of, really a record turnout of almost 800 delegates attending. So it was a close finish among the top 3. The fourth finisher wasn't even seeking delegates.
Interesting. Jessica, I have to ask this right off the top. Mr. Ronchetti will be on the ballot anyway. We knew that going into the convention. So is this snub something Mr. Ronchetti can use to his advantage politically?
I do think so. We were talking about this earlier, and the fact that there is something to be said for how he came out a little bit shiny from, I know you said we'll be talking about the shenanigans at the convention altogether, but he came out on top, I think, with voters and with the media and with the public. Signatures say one thing about a candidate versus delegate votes. I'm not particularly an insider. I don't care for delegate votes when I've got voter support. Look at all these signatures I have up front. I do think he's got something going for him with name recognition and with the war chest that he's managed to amount ahead of the other delegates. And with continued goodwill like that, who's to say that he can't come out as the premier candidate against Michelle Lujan Grisham?
Senator Feldman, I got to read you a quote from Mr. Ronchetti. I just found this amazing quote. "I'm concerned because of the backbiting and backstabbing that this process has become. We've got gubernatorial candidates trying to keep each other gubernatorial candidates off the ballot. We've got cheap shot cowards going out there sending texts anonymously, grow up. This isn't who we are. That's amazing to me, taking on a party like that, the party that you want to lead, ostensibly for the governor's office. What is he saying here to the Republican Party of New Mexico with these kind of quotes?
Well, he is saying grow up. And I think that Ron Kennedy looks good just because everybody else looks so terrible. And he's been able to distance himself from the clown car, so to speak. And, you know, it's not hard to do because the Republican Party, even though this was obviously a disaster in terms of people backbiting, in terms of miscounts, in terms of delays, in terms of banning the media from the vote count, the Republican Party itself thinks it was spectacular, thinks it was a paragon of election integrity. And so, you know, Ron Kennedy's just laughing all the way to the bank because, of course, he's raised, I think, over $1 million.
That's right.
And is a front runner. And to me, this just like really clearly points out how antiquated these political conventions are. These pre-primary conventions, they are unnecessary, and they are just, you know, a trap waiting to go wrong and bring down the party. But of course, the party wants to keep them because it increases their influence and their power. But you know, we did away with these smoke-filled rooms at the beginning of the century nationally, and now suddenly they're back without the smoke, but with a lot of boondoggles.
That's right. That's right. Merritt, I got to know, you were there. You were an eyewitness. What went wrong here? What was the situation?
I was not at the state convention. I was at the Bernalillo County convention. I was not able to be at a state convention as I was not selected to be a delegate by Bernalillo County. I did have I did get some eyewitness accounts, and of course I followed the media who were covering what they could because it was not an entirely open process to the media. Which was a mistake.
Yep.
What marked both conventions, both in the largest county in the state and the state convention, was ineptness, and that's a real concern for me. Both with just letting participants know what time to be there. That was difficult to find out at the county level. That was a problem at the state convention. Delegates were turned away after being told in their registration information by email that registration would take place between 9 and 9:30 on Saturday morning. Some delegates who arrived at 8:58 were told it was already closed and they could not be in their could not get their credentials, would not be able to vote.
Wow.
Is that inept? Is that deliberate? It's hard to know. Similar issues at the Bernalillo County Convention. Bernalillo County Convention, a rule change was announced that was apparently not voted on by the state's, by the county central committee. It was just simply announced by some people that only central committee members would be voting on delegates. As opposed to
what would be the point of that? That's kind of confusing. I mean, isn't the point to have everybody vote at a convention?
Well, not in Bernalillo County.
Wow.
So that happened. Then at Bernalillo County, also like at the state convention, there is difficulty in voting, so voting couldn't happen right away. So
what happened there? What's your inside information on why the delay on the vote count? What happened there?
At state or county?
State, my fault.
State, the email, it was supposed to be by email, and the email system did not work. So they had to print ballots. Then the ballots, you went and voted by your congressional district. Well, there were nearly 800 people there. So you had to go stand in line with more than 100 people in it. And then there were proxies. So you stood in line for your proxy, then you had to go to the back of the line and vote for yourself. And then of course the media were all kept in a separate room and could not be witness to that, which there was no reason for that. There were no secrets. There were no writing candidates. There was nothing that should not have been completely transparent. Bernalillo County, it was the opposite. It was supposed to be for at-large delegates were not selected by their wards. It was supposed to be a paper ballot. They found there was no way to print ballots at their convention site, and so that was email done later. It was voting irregularity that I felt should have been contingencies that were planned for in both locations. And so again, whether this was just extreme ineptness or something deliberate,
Right.
I don't know. And so I feel among the candidates, I don't feel like there are any losers, but the Republican Party lost.
Gotcha. Let's go back to those candidates. Excellent description there. I appreciate you taking the time on that, Merritt. Thank you very much. Senator Feldman, were you surprised at all that C.J. Block finished higher than Rebecca Dow and Greg Zanetti? I was surprised.
I was very surprised. Yeah, I was very surprised, and I think these party conventions show the power of the insiders. You know, the candidates campaign to the delegates, not to the general public, or not even to the mass of Republican voters statewide. Theirs is a very small targeted audience. And, you know, it's dangerous because many times the nominee of a state party at their convention loses because they're not really the choice of the people. Gary King, for example, at the Democratic convention, I don't know, the same year that Susana Martinez ran.
That's right.
He won in the Democratic convention, but lost mightily in the general election. So once again, I think we need to reevaluate how whether it's not destructive to the party to hold these pre-primary conventions every other year, spend a lot of money on it, spend a lot of time on it, rather than organizing the grassroots of their party, which I think many feel should have their voice heard, as well as those who can afford to travel to a state convention and endure the kind of things that Merritt was talking about in order to just cast their little vote.
Interesting. Jessica, I guess from just here before we get out of this one, I'm curious, Jessica. Rebecca Dow seemed to be the favorite for the establishment, quote unquote, going in. What happened there? My guess at a convention would have been her all the way, but it didn't happen that way.
I think we're just going to have to go back to what Dee Dee said, which is these are processes that you think you know what's going to happen going in, but there is a lot of insider parlay happening. Now, I saw Rebecca Dow yesterday, and she was all smiles and handshakes, engaging with people at a luncheon here in Carlsbad. She didn't seem disappointed overall by being second. A second runner-up in the pre-primary convention, but I do think that she would say she was surprised that Block came out ahead of her. And you know, she's popular. She's got some name weight behind her. I wouldn't count her out overall just because he managed to walk away with 25% or 27%, excuse me, of the delegate votes.
And if I could just
Please.
weigh in,
Absolutely.
there are a lot of delegates who didn't vote. Because people believed they could vote by email remotely, they left. And then it became paper ballots and they had no way to vote. So there are a lot of lost votes there. There are the people who weren't able to come in and were not present because they were turned away in the morning. So Dow only lost by 7 votes.
I'm glad you got that in because it seems to me, Merritt, what you're saying is this discredited now because of that? I mean, should we just all by Monday morning not even take what happened at the convention with any?
I think it's irrelevant.
Right.
It's irrelevant except for and really the only thing that the convention decides is the order of candidates as they will appear on the ballot. And I think even the most generous of commentators say that maybe at most accounts for 2%.
Okay.
If you're first on the ballot as opposed to second on the ballot.
Right. Interesting.
So
But in a
that's
close race, 2%.
only outcome.
Right. Exactly right. Interesting. Thank you all for your thoughts on that. We'll be watching. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Merritt.
It's really unfair to the delegates who traveled to Ruidoso and made an effort, spent the day, because Ruidoso is not close to a lot of things. So just about everyone traveled, made an effort to do what, because they were invested in the process, nearly 800 delegates, not all of them got to vote. And I think it's a real disservice to them.
That's a shame. Again, thank you for your thoughts on that. We'll be watching this primary campaign season closely in the coming weeks and months. It's been decades, and for some of us, lifetimes, since we've had to contemplate the reality of an authoritarian power invading a sovereign nation. That's where we are now with Russia and Ukraine. As we all struggle to figure out where the U.S. and New Mexico fit into all of this, the people in Ukraine are fighting to stay alive. Earlier this week, I got the opportunity to talk through an interpreter with a Ukrainian professor who's sheltering right now just outside of the capital of Kyiv.
Where is our guest? Is he safe? And what's the situation for him currently?
Пане Романе, чи ви є в безпеці? І яка ситуація коло вас тепер? Якраз де ви знаходитесь і як то виглядає?
Ситуація тяжка, тому що навколо йдуть бої. І та якраз Буча знаходиться в місті, в такому місці, де воно переходить то в одні руки, то в інші.
All right, so перестань на хвилинку. So fighting all around, territory keeps moving from Russian to Ukrainian and back and forth. It's a constant, but fighting all around, intense fighting.
Gotcha.
Прошу, продовжуйте.
My next question is, what is the communication for him at this point? Is he able to communicate with friends? Does he have friends and family? Is there internet? What's the communication situation?
Пане Романе, як ви можете говорити зі своїми товаришами, чи що? Є телефони, є інтернет, що, як ви говорите один з другим?
Зараз зі зв'язком стало краще, налагодили роботу мобільні оператори. Ось, і з багатьма я можу розмовляти. Але є місця, в яких зараз знаходяться російські окупанти, там, де теж перебувають мої друзі, знайомі. З ними зв'язок дуже поганий, але смс інколи доходять.
He says it's better right now. The local, technicians have gotten back and fixed a lot of stuff that they could do. So it's better than it was a few days ago. Because they go back and forth anyway. And then we've got, but in the areas that are occupied by the Russian troops, that's bad. But they still can get some text messages across. Not great, but they can do it.
Right. Is our guest looking to get out of the country with his family, I'm wondering, or is he going to stay and try and see this thing through?
Пане Романе, залишаєтеся чи хочете забратися звідти?
Ні, я особисто хотів би жити в Україні, в вільній Україні, інтегрованій у західну спільноту.
А тепер якраз в тій моменті ви лишаєтесь?
В цей момент лишаюся, тому що зі мною живе моя мама, якій 80 років, якій треба догляд, дружина, сусіди з маленькими дітьми. Ми тут кооперуємося, намагаємося один одному допомагати.
All right, so he wants to stay, the goal is to stay in a free, European connected Ukraine.
Right.
He's not going anywhere right now. He's got an 80-year-old mother, he's got his wife, he's got the neighbors and their kids.
Right.
They're all working together, they're helping each other, they're watching each other. Nobody's going anyplace.
Mm-hmm. How, just a couple more questions here. How, I'm in my mind's eye, I can't quite picture where the Russian push is northwest of Kyiv. I'm working on probably a week-old map here.
Right.
But is this going to get worse in this area here soon? What's the prediction for this part of the country?
I've heard a lot of stories out of Bucha myself, but let's go on. Як виглядає, пане Романе, ви є на північний захід від Києва, так?
Мабуть, так.
Так?
Так.
Як виглядає, що він пробує зрозуміти, зорієнтуватися, що там, як то виглядає тепер, що там буде, що ви можете сподіватися, чи воно буде далі буде так, як тепер, чи що ви маєте на вашу думку? Там, де ви є якраз.
На мою думку, я думаю так, що чим більше у нас буде зброї високотехнологічної, нової, чим більше буде допомоги, тим швидше це все закінчиться. Наш народ, наскільки ви бачите, не хоче повертатися в минуле. Ми хочемо майбутнього, світлого майбутнього. І тому, чим більше ця допомога, тим більше українців лишаться живими, як військових, так і цивільних.
Okay. They're looking for a bright future. And the only way to get that is with ammunition. Right now, they just want to fight and get those guys out of there, the enemy. And they all have they're just resolute. There's no discussion, there's no argument, and there's no nothing. They're staying there. They just need the ability to fend off the attackers.
Mm-hmm. Last question for our guest, and George, we can't thank you enough for doing this. What from our guest's point of view, what would he like Americans to know about what's happening in Ukraine right now, and what's the best way Americans could help at this point?
Пане Романе, наш гість хоче знати, чим американці можуть допомогти, що ви найбільше вимагаєте, що вам потрібно тепер.
На цей момент дуже актуальне питання із боротьбою з російською авіацією і ракетами дальньої дії. Вони носять велику шкоду нашим великим містам. І за них гинуть мирні люди в Харкові, в Києві, в Ірпені, Бородянці і багатьох інших містах. Ворог зрозумів, що швидко нас не здолати, і він намагається сіяти паніку таким чином. Чим швидше буде закрите небо, тим легше нам буде це подолати. Ну і, звичайно, навіть така велика країна, як Радянський Союз, не змогла справитися без допомоги економічної. Якби не західна економічна допомога, Союз би, він, мабуть, би не здолав би фашистську Німеччину.
He circled back at the end to how the West helped the Red Army in World War II defeat Nazi Germany through our, weapons and tanks and all the stuff that we gave them. So what he wants now, and he feels that all the Ukrainians want it, is we need to close the skies. So the Russians have realized that they're not going to win militarily.
Right.
So what they're doing is they're sowing panic and confusion by indiscriminate bombing of civilian targets in all of the major cities. So they're taking out anything that's going to disorient, create doubt amongst the civilians. So they're mostly worried about aviation, fighter jet strikes and rocket strikes. That's what's given the most trouble. The other thing, a lot of people, like kids, women and all that, the civilians are bleeding out from the shrapnel. So they really needed the tourniquets and those kinds of things to get them through the night. But they're just doing, he said, so what we need to do is just help Ukraine economically, but close the skies to bombardment, whether it's missile or aviation.
That makes sense.
That's all they want right now, and then they'll take care of the ground fight.
Yeah, the no-fly zone, exactly right. And
That's exactly, they need protection from above.
yeah, that makes sense. Everything would change at that point. George, you could be so kind to please thank our guest from all of us here at New Mexico PBS and as American citizens, that let him know he's not alone here. There are many, many Americans that are, I hate to be insulting, not saying pulling for Ukraine, but we need to do something actively here beyond just wishing and hoping. And hopefully it'll happen in the next little bit of time that we can help out the country. It's important. If Ukraine goes, Europe, I mean, the whole thing, you don't need to tell him all of this, of course, but if you just tell him we said thank you, we wish him good luck and good prayer and Godspeed. And if there's anything we can help with in the States here, please let us know, since we have his contact.
It's horrendous. It's actual war crimes, so what we're seeing. So of course we want to have a no-fly zone, but we also understand that means direct military confrontation with Russia, which is everybody's trying to avoid. So it's a tough one. I don't know, like, yeah, we would like to have it. I don't know if it's possible.
Thank you again to George Klapashak from the Ukrainian Americans of New Mexico for putting us in touch with the professor. We'll hear from 3 other members of that organization in a little over 10 minutes. For now, we're talking hydrogen. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham has been determined to put New Mexico on the map when it comes to hydrogen, and she did it again this week. New Mexico is now part of a 4-state coalition with Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming. That group will lobby together for part of an $8 billion kitty in federal money tabbed for hydrogen development. Now, it comes after the state legislature failed to pass tax incentives for hydrogen development and storage. You might recall that. Dede Feldman, why is the governor so determined on this issue?
Well, she's got her eye on the $8 billion that are available through the infrastructure bill coming down from Washington. She seems to want to overrule the legislature, right, which killed not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different attempts to table this initiative. So she wants to do it. So does Patricia Lundstrom, the head of the Appropriations Committee, and the representative in whose district this hydrogen hub, if it comes to New Mexico, right, would be located near Pruitt, New Mexico. So it's definitely skirting the legislature. It's also doing it in spite of the universal opposition of environmentalists nationwide and in New Mexico. Nearly 30 groups came before the legislature and said, you can't prevent pollution by creating pollution, which is what they say hydrogen does, because it utilizes natural gas and it then emits carbon dioxide in the process of producing hydrogen. So, you know, the idea here in the governor's plan is that this would utilize so-called blue hydrogen, right, which is a little bit more environmentally friendly and involves sequestering the carbon dioxide underground. Well, that's well and good, but we're not there yet, for sure, by any means. But they are going ahead with this anyway by executive order and hoping to join with these other states, submit a proposal, and get around $1 billion.
You know, Jessica, you know, considering the backlash at Dede's describing quite well over natural gas consumption, you know, during this session, we heard it. Is the governor also ignoring public opinion by making this move?
I'm not sure that that's completely accurate. I think the public isn't really well enough schooled on what exactly hydrogen fuel is and how it's created. I think that what you've seen given to the public are both of these extremes, which is it's pollution, pollution creating. So in any controversial issue, words are the way to sway one person or one way or the other. And so you see people calling this clean hydrogen, green hydrogen, and in the other camp, you hear them calling it fossil fuel hydrogen. So I think that there is still a lot to be said for educating the public about exactly what we're talking about here. You know, you tend to couch it in terms of we are limiting pollution, we're creating jobs. This is from the governor's camp. And then from the extreme side, you see environmentalists and their advocates saying, actually, no, is exactly as Dee Dee said, you can't solve pollution by creating pollution. And then I think I've heard some arguments even saying that this is another way to subsidize fossil fuel operators in New Mexico.
That's out there too. Merritt, the idea, this decision by the governor, I'm so curious your opinion. How does this impact your relationship with the Democratic leadership in the legislature? You know, soon to be ex-House Speaker Brian Egoff tabled, as Dee Dee mentioned, several of those bills himself. Where does that put her in relation with Democrats right now?
Well, I certainly feel that after rejecting much of her agenda, as she tried to move to the center as she needs to for re-election, elections are decided by the center. It's clear that she's moving forward. And this is a state where there's always been a strong executive and a relatively weak legislature, and she's flexing that muscle again. This is a decision I applaud. I think this administration has been far too dismissive of our extractive industries. You know, let's remember that we are an oil and gas and coal producing state that was up until just a week or so ago facing rolling blackouts this summer because we had no backup plan for the closure of the San Juan coal facility. As an energy state with a history in energy innovation, let's remember the Manhattan Project happened here. This is hydrogen development and hydrogen research. It makes sense for us. I think we all know that fossil fuels have a limited life on this planet. Industry is moving away from it. Detroit is moving away from it, but it's not going to end tomorrow. It's not going to end next week. It's not going to end next year. So I think this is a smart move for New Mexico. And I think the political ramifications, the governor is far less interested in what the legislature thinks and far more interested in what voters think in November.
Senator, I'm curious, you know, part of this idea is that there's going to be, of this MOU, is that research and everything we're talking about hydrogen is going to be worked on between these three states, other states. I'm curious, you know, Los Alamos, Sandia, are they in this at all? You know, if I was the governor and I was rolling that out, I'd have those cats in my hip pocket actually going out the door with this thing. Honestly, do they have a play here, Sandia and Los Alamos?
I think that the Environment Department has already signed an MOU with Los Alamos to study hydrogen and the production of hydrogen. So there is a role for the national labs there. And I think that it will take years, though, before they can adequately study this. And meanwhile, I think the rush is on, from what I'm reading from the governor, to start this process as quickly as possible. And as much as we have the legacy of Los Alamos, the creation of the nuclear weapons, our involvement in oil and gas, we also have the legacy of abandoned mines, of uranium tailings, of all of these byproducts of both oil and gas and the nuclear weapons cycle. And it is usually felt most deeply by indigenous populations, and particularly around the Grants and Gallup area, up into Arizona and northwestern New Mexico. These are the folks that are saying, you know, we shouldn't hang our hat on research completely, but remember, it affects real people on the ground.
Good point there.
Grant, can I Or Jean, can I add to that just really
Absolutely,
quickly?
please. Mhm.
So just to the point that Dee was making as far as research for this particular fuel, we spoke to the governor a couple of weeks ago, and I think what people also need to understand is that this isn't something that's new, that's out of left field. Our oil and gas industry has been using hydrogen fuel in certain operations for a while now, and in certain ways, they are actually leading the charge in research to find ways to make this fiscally possible, more environmentally friendly. So when we spoke to the governor, she was pretty adamant in saying we already have, as New Mexico, as a leading oil and gas state, we have resources in place that can help us succeed and even surpass expectations when it comes to hydrogen.
I'm glad you got that in, Jess, because I got a chance to talk with, and Merritt knows this, our Energy Secretary Granholm when she was here in New Mexico on her tour of this part of the country talking about hydrogen. That was the exact point you just made she was making here in New Mexico when she was here. Your point you just made, that this is already in process and that industry feels like they're going to get on top of this way quicker than environmentalists think they can. And so we'll have to see. Anyway, thank you all. We'll chat once more with our line panelists in about 10 minutes. First, a panel discussion with 3 members of the nonprofit group Ukrainian Americans of New Mexico. All 3 have family in Ukraine right now, and all 3 have unique perspectives on the tragedy playing out in their home country.
Larissa, you've also heard, or trying to hear from friends and folks you know in Ukraine. How's it going for you to be in communication with folks? Let's start there.
The communication is pretty well at this time. There is some technical problems, but communication is well. I talked to my mom. She said they lost television over there because the bomb hit the TV station with all the antennas, and they cannot see any news, but they hanging on radio right now. But we communicate through Viber, so it's using internet data, so that works. So that works, and that's really helping. My mom just near Kiev. She's in Boyarka, which maybe like 20 miles away from Kiev, and the bombing, and she hears everything. It's goes here and there. It's very loud. When I talk to her, I see her going down, trying to, that reflex humans have when you hear bombs hitting the ground.
Natalia, tell us about your family situation and how you're able to contact folks in Ukraine. Has it been difficult? Are you hearing from the people you want to hear from at this point?
Yeah, we have actually really difficult situation. My relatives and friends right now in Kiev and Chernigov region. And in Kiev, we have a little town, beautiful little town, 10 miles from Kiev. And Russian troops, the last 2 nights, they bombed them for 8 hours. I lost connection, and we of course have a communicate with them on Viber. It's only thing, but I lost communication with them for a day, and I didn't know what happened to them. And my friends sent me pictures. They actually sent me messages on Viber because we are in a group in our building apartment, and they I see what they type in. They say, "Why? What we have to run? What we should do? There is a bombing." And other people say, "No, you have to stay to home because we couldn't go out." And people completely some say, "My kid is crying. I don't know where I should hide them." It's all really, 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 really sad and difficult because of Bucha. It was really beautiful city, and they destroyed city completely. It's very, very sad to see those pictures.
Mm-hmm. The idea, I'm thinking about the State of the Union speech last night from President Biden. And just a real simple question to start this off. Were you satisfied with the president's response during the State of the Union speech last night?
I'm embarrassed to say that this is the things I always follow, but not at this moment, but because my capacity to. So if you can just point out what were the most important things, I'll be able to respond.
Not a problem at all. Let me actually kick that to Larissa, and you can listen in and kind of come back. You know, Larissa, he did talk about, obviously talk about Ukraine, very tough on Putin, but talked a lot about just about sanctions, and that was about it. Were you satisfied?
Yeah, I know that most of the world, Europe and Biden, they all are trying to isolate Putin financially, and that means a lot, but it's not enough. It's not enough. We need more. We need physical help, not the fighting, but at least bring in equipment, the tanks, whatever, airplanes in faster, because it's way too slow. They don't get enough. They don't get enough, and they need bulletproof vests. They need protection so they can fight, not die over there.
That's right. That's right. And as George, you might recall last week, the president of Ukraine said, "I don't need a lift. I need arms. You know, I don't need a ride out of here. I'm staying." And so again, it just, I guess we're leading up to an obvious question here. For the allies of Ukraine, allies of NATO, NATO members, whatever the case may be, is there a step you personally would like to see all these entities take in this situation here soon?
It's a tough one because we absolutely Ukraine suffers from these bombardments and a lot of civilian population. Like on the ground, our forces are really holding back this huge army, and they're doing a great job of it. But the protection from the sky is what hurts the civilians and hurts the army morally. I mean, yeah, it's horrendous. It's actual war crimes. So what we're seeing. So of course we want to have a no-fly zone, but we also understand that that means direct military confrontation with Russia, which is everybody's trying to avoid. So it's a tough one. I don't know. Like, yeah, we would like to have it. I don't know if it's possible.
Natalia, let's talk about the organization. There were some, Larissa mentioned earlier at Santa Fe, there were some protests. Tell us of what happened over these past few days, and if there are other protests planned for the New Mexico area that we should be aware of.
Okay, we already have demonstrations 1 month ago, because I knew Putin will invite Ukraine, and I called my friends, please have a food, to be prepared, you know, but they didn't believe it. They say, no, it couldn't happen. No. I say, please do something now. And we already had like 4 demonstrations. The first one, it was on January 30, I think, yes. And after the war started, we had 3 more demonstrations. As for now, we try to, we already sent the letters to congressmen to have to get some information, because we wanna got a connection with Red Cross, and we want to be ready when the refugees will come to New Mexico, and we just try to organize everything, got the connections, rent the storages, looking, talking with the churches who can help us, and what kind of churches, because actually the Russian church, Orthodox church in Santa Fe, they say we will help you, and it's like very wow.
Any last thoughts? I don't want to get you guys out and get back to what you're doing. George, let me start with you. What do Americans need to know, or Albuquerqueans or New Mexicans, what do we need to know about Ukraine at this point? Is there something missing that bothers you about the understanding of your country that you want folks to know?
Yeah, thank you. It's again a big one to unpack, but like something to be aware is, for example, that this war is also information war, and there's still quite a bit of misinformation floating around in the West, and even in big media reporting, sometimes the picture is a little distorted. We have a lot of this doomsday kind of scenarios that everything's going to fall. They were telling us Kyiv is going to fall in 2 days, and what I want to say just is that it's good to be aware that there is a complicated situation to get your own sense out of it. And if possible, find their Ukrainian sources who are on the ground, who are doing very robust fact checking. Find the Ukrainians who report in English, and you can get a better picture of the sense of what is going on.
Larissa, you have a unique position. You were there, of course, in the medical field, and you're in the medical field here as a nurse. I'm interested in your perspective. What don't we know here in the States about Ukraine that we need to know about? What's missing?
About Ukraine, we're missing a lot because it's complicated history where Ukraine were under Russian jurisdiction for the long time, and actually 19th century Ukrainian people were physically slaves of Russian nobles. And the dream of Ukrainian people was always to be free. And when Soviet Union broke off, and that unique chance became our opportunity, we grabbed it. And we were free for 30 years. And now we got taste of it. And no one can take it away from us. That's why our people fighting to the last breath, to the last drop of their blood. And they're gonna stand for their country because they know they want their freedom. They don't want to be puppet of Russia. They don't want to be colonial. They don't want to be, I mean, world didn't stop. It moves on. We've been free. You can't just come and tell us, hey, remember that time? I want you back. No, it's impossible. That's history drawn by people who's living in their country. History written by these Ukrainian people. They love their country. They don't want to give it up. Putin can do whatever crimes he's able. I know he's sending vacuum bombs. He dropping those, what you call them, cluster bombs. Just cluster bombs. They directed for the civilians. They sending them around the hospitals, around the kindergartens. A lot of kids got killed because of the cluster bombs. Because when they explode, it shoots small bombs everywhere. That's what he does. He has to be held accountable for his crimes. Those weapons is prohibited. It's banned in the entire world. And he's doing it. Something has to be done. And he's not going to turn the history back. History moving forward. And we are free and we want to be free.
I can't thank you enough for your time. I know this is a very difficult situation. George Danilov, Larissa Castillo, and Natalia Pavlenko Edelman. She is the president of the Ukrainian Americans of New Mexico, and all you two are members as well.
Thank you again to our guests from the Ukrainian Americans of New Mexico. We touched on a few more issues during our 20-minute discussion about the invasion and our response to it. You can watch that full interview on our New Mexico in Focus Facebook and YouTube pages. Now let's welcome back the Line Opinion panel, back one final time to discuss an issue that's been flown a bit under the radar. According to data obtained by Searchlight New Mexico, the state mistakenly paid out $106 million in pandemic unemployment aid, or PUA as it's known, and now it's demanding that money back from the citizens who unknowingly received it. Now, is that fair? And how could such a major error happen? Let me throw that first to Dee Feldman. Senator Feldman, how could it happen, and why are we asking for money back here?
You know, it's obvious that the Department of Workforce Solutions has been overwhelmed by claims during the pandemic, and also new funds coming to the state through the various federal, through the CARES Act, for example, and other funds. But there really, this seems quite incompetent in my view, and really a terrible injustice that they are now asking people to pay back money that was sent to them by their own error. I mean, it is the Department of Workforce Solution that calculates how much people are due in unemployment. Individuals don't calculate that themselves and figure out whether they're being overpaid or underpaid. And then to be suddenly faced with a $13,000 bill. I mean, it is an outrage for the Department of Workforce Solutions, I think. And people, I think, are justifiably mad about then having this money that they supposedly owe deducted from future checks that they are due. So, you know, it's just another one of those things that's going to make people hate government, even though they're the recipient of funds from the government. They are now going to be left with a very sour taste in their mouths.
Jessica, when you think about, I know you know this, I'm not news to you, but, you know, Department of Workforce Solutions, their own numbers show 17,136 people, that's nearly 20% of PUA payment recipients, have filed waivers asking to be excused from paying back the money. Over 17,000 people.
So let me just say, when I first read this Searchlight piece, just blew my mind. And I will say this about that particular piece of reporting. The original number for overpayment was somewhere close to 240 million, not the 106 that they just recently corrected it to. So even then it seemed really extreme. And now even with the 106 million, it's a crazy number. But you're right. You know, we're talking about real people here. We're talking about real people with families, and this is going to affect them greatly. The last report I read said something like 14,000 people are still waiting for waivers to be exempted from repaying this. And it's just dragging on. It's just dragging on.
That's wild. Hey, Merritt, the same issue, as you know, is playing out in Arizona, Michigan, New Jersey, Connecticut, lots of other states. Should some of the blame fall on the federal government for failing to be specific enough with the criteria for PUA money?
Well, absolutely. And I think the root cause of this, there is just so much money out there.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous amount of money out there that went to states, flooding aid, started with the last administration, continued with this administration. New Mexico is actually one of the slowest states. We couldn't even figure out how to spend all this money.
Right.
I mean, that should tell you something. The situation is almost ludicrous. We're printing money. Or just manufacturing it electronically, I guess you could almost say. So the notion of going down to the lowest level, the households where it matters, where this is keeping people out of poverty and feeding their family, to claw it back from them when we're a state who couldn't even figure out who was going to spend the money, whether it was going to be the governor or the legislature, and that whole fight, and paying lawyers to work that out in front of the Supreme Court, to claw it back from the individual household, to me, it's just mean.
Right.
It's just mean.
No, I don't think it's just you. Senator, interesting, Rhode Island, as you probably know, is waiving all overpayments, saying the money is, quote, long gone. You know, in our state right now, more than 2,000 waiver requests have been denied. I don't, where are we headed on this?
Well, how did that happen?
Right.
How did that happen? Well, you know, I think that clearly New Mexico ought to just give a blanket waiver as a result of these overpayments, particularly since we are, if not the poorest state or the lowest income state, at least in the top three of the lowest income states. And yes, there's a lot of money, but yes, there's a lot of unemployment, and there's a lot of need in New Mexico as well. So all the more reason for the Department of Workforce Solutions to enact a blanket waiver and then enact for the public an accounting of where this money went to and what they're doing with it.
Merritt, I'm so frustrated with this topic because why aren't we, as Dee Dee says, we are flush right now. Who are these people inside Workforce Solutions turning down these waiver requests? That's what I want to know right off the top. What is the criteria? How do they decide who gets one? Who decides who doesn't get one? We don't know any of that at this point.
Right.
That's true. There's very little transparency on this. And then my question is, what is the state going to do with the money? Again, we have not been able to figure out how to spend the deluge of federal funds we've gotten, what substantive purpose are we going to put these funds to?
Right.
Again, I think a blanket waiver, the funds are gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we saw this in Congress with the Paycheck Protection Program. 2 cereal box tops and an application put out in crayon, and your Paycheck Protection Program waiver got approved.
Wow.
I think New Mexico could easily do that here.
I gotta say, in a poor state where money is just a very tricky thing, if Workforce Solutions wants to take it to its natural extent and start issuing warrants and bringing people to court to get this money back, I say good luck to them. This ought to be a very interesting deal. Go ahead, Senator. Look like you got a thought there.
But they don't have to. They don't have to do that. All they do is deduct it from future unemployment checks.
Right.
So they still have the upper hand, and they don't have to take affirmative action. All they have to do is just withhold the money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Department of Workforce Solutions, I think, bears some checking. They have an acting secretary and have had an acting secretary since their previous secretary, Bill McCamley, left the state, not just left the job, but left the state very prematurely. So I think this bears some further investigation, and I really applaud Searchlight New Mexico.
Yeah. Thumbs up to them. Thank you for mentioning them. Thanks again to our line panel. Amazing as always this week. Now be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics. We had a lot of them you can comment on. Get to us on Facebook, Twitter, or our Instagram pages. My thanks to all for the Ukrainian Americans of New Mexico. Again, we'll have all the links for ways you can help at our webpage, newmexicopbs.org. It's been a busy few weeks locally in the news, but there is something I'd like to note from the past, and that's the continuing and seemingly growing problem of street racing in our county. The news of that school bus being turned over after being crashed into by someone in a street race was shocking, and there seems to be no end to it. Now, it's no secret street racing surged across the country during the pandemic, our city included. With speeding being up overall in the city, APD has a new ticketing scheme which will do a wonderful job at slowing the thoughtless and the habitual daily commuter speeder. But that's of no deterrent to someone willing to go over 100 miles an hour in a residential zone. Since we can't have cruisers and speed vans at every intersection, I wonder if a new approach to city-owned cameras would help here. A lot of them, and start in well-known hot zones like Montgomery. Now, this is not a new idea. It's been going on across the country to combat street racing. But the idea is simple. There's a new era of tech with cameras that could quite easily tag every participant in a street race. It's by no means a silver bullet, but at some point we have to admit a manpower ceiling and look to tech to fill a gap. Thanks again for joining us and for staying informed and engaged. We'll see you again next week in Focus.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.